Can you imagine as a person working so hard for your kids to actually have a better life, but you hardly question the kind of information that is constantly informing their young minds? And that's exactly why this whole, I would say, movement of raising healthy, whole kids is at the center of my heart, because I find that parents mean well and they actually do all that they can within their power to provide for their kids what they think their kids need, but they don't really interact with their kids on a level of how is your environment actually, or how is my child's environment preparing them for this real world that we're actually living in. What am I talking about? Now, a lot of people are information consumers, not necessarily critical thinkers. A critical thinker is someone who interacts with the information that they're watching, so you don't necessarily absorb and take everything that you see on face value. What you do is you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, but what is the objective of this information that I'm being given, versus taking the information and assuming that is true. Now, the danger of kids being exposed to anything and everything is that they assume that if it's on the internet, if it's on TV, it's true. The information begins to build a perception, because they think if someone has creativity, it means it is okay. I hope I'm making sense. So for example, what they see, they're not going to really question if it's true or not, unless if the parent has actually trained them to do so. Hey, when you watch something and it goes against what me, mommy, and daddy said, you need to ask yourself, what are they actually trying to do? It helps them not to just simply be information absorbers, but it also helps them to be critical thinkers. And it's exactly what the Lord wants us to do, because remember, the Bible says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It means that what you're filled with, what you're constantly filling yourself with, it will come out one way or the other. You might be conscious about it or not conscious about it, but the way God has created us is that whatsoever fills our heart, it will come out. Now, according to research, there's this guy, a Hungarian clinical psychologist who's passionate about the upbringing of kids and also dealing with trauma. They have found out that the most critical ages of a child, to make sure that you raise them well, is between the ages of 0 and 4. So we could push it a little bit up to 6, 7, but 0 and 4 are very critical, because that's when kids are most impressionable and actually they get to learn everything that they see. My point is that, you don't even have to say much. What they see is constantly what they're taking in, and that forms their understanding about the world around them. Imagine your child is constantly watching things that are forming the principles and values without you, the parent, even being aware of it. And you get surprised why a lot of parents feel like kids are actually strangers. It's because your child is constantly being trained by media and everything else, mommy and daddy, to think in a certain way, to think, I would say, for example, like God is somewhere in the background and we get to consult with God when things are not really good, or when you want a job or a blessing, whatever. But God is not necessarily the center and the foundation of our lives. And the reason why I'm saying so is because maybe Bible study is not done at home, maybe prayer is not done at home. If you truly believe that God and your relationship with Him is the center and the foundation, it has to flow out of you, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. As a man thinketh, so is he. So in this generation that is constantly forming our kids, and we're not necessarily informing them and making sure that they become critical thinkers and people who come up with solutions to some of the biggest problems that we have. And actually, if you do believe that our children are the future of tomorrow, then we have to train them. Someone has to do it. We have to train them to be able to think in that way. Now, I would say that we live in I'll point it out because it is what it is. We live in an AI world. We live in an AI era, time, generation. It's not going back, it's not changing. AI is not bad. But now the issue is that it's going to threaten people that think intelligence is everything. We have so many intelligent people, but we still have issues in this world. And we can go back to say, what is the issue? The heart of man. According to the Bible, a heart that's separated from its creator, unfortunately, will want without finding any rest. So, in going back to how do we prepare our kids for this world that they're living in, which is an AI world, and not to just absorb all kinds of information, is that we, one, mind kind of information that informs them. Two, we ourselves come up with our own principles and values, and we say if something goes against this, then you have to question it, because this is the foundation that we're gonna build our lives. Because you have to have a foundation, you have to have a starting point. How are you going to build anything worth lasting when you don't have a place that you start, you the parent, that you want to impress on your kid, and then what that you want your kid to continue with? Well, I mean, the issue could very well be that a lot of parents are not necessarily thinking about what values they want to pass on to their kids. They're constantly thinking about how they want the child to succeed and all of these things, but we're not necessarily having those hard conversations of character. What kind of character are we building? What kind of men and women are we building? That is why a lot of people tolerate a lot of things in their lives, because there's no boundary on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So make sure that your child, let's raise kids that are not just information consumers, but they are critical thinkers, and they are men and women of revelation. Because when you are a man and a woman of revelation, nothing will replace you, because you'll always get something for the spirit that hasn't been seen yet in the physical realm. Yes, Ecclesiastes 1 says that there's nothing new under the sun, but what it's actually referring to is that whatsoever that you see in the physical realm, it already exists in the spiritual realm. It has been downloaded by that person who will meditate, who will think. If you're not in a position where you set yourself aside to actually think about how your life is, who you are, what's going on, what direction you're going, then you will just be a consumer of information that is already available. And we do know that if you're going to just live from that, it's not enough. Let the Lord lead you and give you this day his daily bread, which is revelation, which is himself, and that becomes your way of being, living from a place that he's prepared for you.